platforms have always been transforming. I joined these in the late 90s, and there was the great transformation, the capacity right. Then it was talking about smart pipes, and then not just being a pipe, being a smart pipe. Then it was OTT, and I think the most recent debate is all the same debate. It just changes word. Is telco versus techco. So I don't know where we are, but where is TELUS with this? Let me ask, how would you define these transformations which are ongoing right now at TELUS? You're here next, so I'll start with Brian, then we'll go to everybody else.
Well, the first thing I'd say is that it's probably no secret that telco has some headwinds, right? And I think that's not new, but I would say they're probably a bit heavier than in the past. And the competition for eyeballs and the competition for engagement is pretty fierce. And I think that how we're going to transform, or how we're trying to transform, is by focusing on the customer experience. Part of the strategy at the highest level for TELUS is to understand what are some of the larger ways that technology and communications can impact the consumer, such as food insecurity, such as health outcomes, and ultimately to try to move away from being commoditized to a termination service. So messaging provides us an opportunity, as does media, to be able to understand that ultimately, even though I've worked my entire career in B2B, telco is driven by the consumers. We're here for the consumers. Ultimately, that's the primary cash flow engine of the company. It's our primary reason for being. Everybody has a phone in their pocket. And so understanding how we can provide a better engagement experience is a way to, and innovating in that space is how we're trying to transform and stay relevant.
And how would you say that TELUS is now developing?
How would I say TELUS has done?
Yeah.
From a trust perspective, I mean, telecoms in Canada face a bit of an uphill battle. We are not the most trusted industry, unfortunately, not yet. But I do think it's interesting to consider that telecoms are so familiar, to Ryan's point. We are very much a part of our customers' lives, and we have a strong B2B connection. We have a strong, consumer connection. And so I think that we're coming from a place of strength as we evolve and grow with technology. What I'm particularly proud of with TELUS is that when I joined in 2019 to, lead the integrated communications rollout of 5G, I was struck by how clearly we really embrace our customers' first message. And I think that's pretty, maybe not unique, but I think it really is, again, a position of strength for us, and it's infused into everything that we do. So as we've evolved into, other dimensions, I think there's this long-standing work in data, work in technology that we can really build off of, at least for 10 years when our Data and Trust Office was founded.
Hemant, the fact that you're working in a different company, it says TELUS AI Factory. Ooh. Tell us a bit more how you see transformation so far.
So I'm part of TELUS. The AI Factory is one of the recent investments we have done. And I think the first speaker over here was talking about infrastructure as a national investment, right? So I think we started 30 years back when I was a baby, when the pipes were laid down, I think as building the foundations of a home, right? Like the connectivity is basically the bedrock of the digital economy we're living in today. The last decade was more about data and analytics, and that's where TELUS really left a mark. And that's now sets the foundation for this decade, which is the AI-enabled decade. And that's where, again, AI infrastructure is going to become a foundational keystone to Canada's success and growth. And I think TELUS has been pioneering in each of these decades, adjusting the needs of what the economy needs, what Canadian needs, and growing from strength to strength. I think we have to consider infrastructure as a national asset, not just a private investment anymore.
Well, we'll link it back to the first keynotes and talking about that. We'll come back to some of those concepts about sovereignty and so on. And I think I owe, apart from a second to reflect. So we're seeing that TELUS is really developing. I would probably say that I hear that the product side, the way you look at your product, the way you look at yourself is changing. Your relationship with consumers and the trust you're building. And some of those well, you call it pipes, or AI infrastructure is the beginning of that. So plenty areas you're going through that. A bit more of details will on, fear not, we'll come to you. But should I say the sexy one, or at least the hype one? I don't know, you choose the word. But AI has been talked a lot about. So what does TELUS do, Hemant? What are your contribution to these industries, so to speak?
I can go on and on, right?
No, you cannot.
But I'll pick and choose a few things. So I think I'll talk about sovereign AI factory in a bit.
We'll come to it. Yeah.
But I think the foundations is definitely in enabling our employees to use technology and AI. It's democratizing of the AI access. So we have tools. We've enabled tools for our almost 60,000 employees to use generative AI tools in day-to-day lives. And what they have done is actually built 6,000 Gen AI co-pilots that help them do more, increase their productivity on a day-to-day basis. And I'll start with a very basic example, and people might find it trivial, but we have an IT support chatbot, right? That basically takes in, how many of you have called in for a password reset or something, only to be stuck on a call for half an hour waiting for an agent to pick up the call, right? So the first transformation that we did is just basically enabling a conversational chatbot to talk about IT support. And if the bot is not able to resolve that, an agent takes over, having all the history about the conversation, and then resolves it. We've seen 20% reduction in call handling by agents. And that's kind of significant impact. And these applications might sound boring, but these are the foundational elements that build the muscle for much complex AI solutions going forward.
Well, given the people we got here, definitely we don't think this is boring. That's kind of bread and butter for some of the people out here. And something else that should be bread and butter is the trust. So what would you actually do at MEF? What's your day job?
My day job. I
say MEF. I wish it would be.
I have the best job. So I get to talk about trust, and I get to look at the survey data and understand what people are thinking about, what their hopes are, what their concerns are. When I started in my role in January 2022, I was talking about privacy. I was talking about, the standard data governance. And by the end of the year, we were talking AI, right? ChatGPT launched. Responsible AI is so critically important. My team, I'm going to brag a little, last week was at the UN AI for Good Summit. They were invited to speak. And actually, one of the topics that our Chief Data and Trust Officer spoke on was this very topic, the transformation of telcos right into technology companies, because it's such a natural evolution. But what I do really quickly also want to say is, further to that story around the launch of our customer support Gen AI tool, is that, our office is involved, our data and trust office is involved very closely with the Chief AI office, and also with the whole organization. And so we spotted very, very early on that there were not only AI governance opportunities for us to work across the team, take advantage of that democratization and curiosity of our team member base, but also build trust externally with something like that. And we were actually the first company in the world first Gen AI product in the world to secure ISO privacy by design certification. So, it's just those, and there were lots more to come, but I think, just continuing to have that discussion to build those relationships with both our customers, who really, really do appreciate. I spend a lot of my time, providing content, providing messaging for our B2B teams, but also, our consumers who just want to understand exactly what's happening. So I'll stop there.
Well, I could ask the same to Ryan, but first let's ask you, do you know Ryan Tollofson, any of you? Raise your hands. I think. Popular. So people know
all
you,
good,
but
I hope.
What do you do here?
So I have the privilege of working with a group of partner solutions team members, as well as a broader team members at TELUS that are trying to drive innovation and change through the organization. I think it's not a really obvious place to drive innovation sometimes in a telco, because we're doing it from what's called a wholesale division, but that does allow us to work and understand how to manage collaboration and ecosystems. And I think this is really what I think is going to be the defining difference on our ability to succeed in this market. How do we actually drive success not only for our end users, but also for the channel, for the aggregators, for all of the players in this ecosystem and the brands themselves. And so I have the privilege of driving a team that is very oriented to change and innovation and enjoy it.
Well, let's talk about that team and some of your innovations. I think May the 12th was a date where RCS was officially, let's say officially launched. I think that definitions for you. And by TELUS, so congratulations, you were the first one.
Thank you.
Well done to that. Tell us a bit more about that launch, because that's obviously RCS close to there and at my heart. How is it going?
Well,
2 months.
Yeah, it's 2 months in. I mean, and the journey that started long before that press release went out, for sure. And it's going really well. We've launched 2 internal agents, both in consumer as well as in our SMB team. And we are showing some really good, I'm not going to steal the thunder of the panel that's coming on later, but some really good KPIs on success of the campaigns internally. We have repatriated one of the guest cloud campaigns as well. So we have an external campaign running, and we have a pipeline of agents that are waiting. So we're still in the pilot phase because we are eagerly working and waiting to work with the rest of the industry on standards for brand verification and making sure that we have as simple and consistent of a process for onboarding as possible. I think we have a lot to talk in the industry about pricing. We heard from Gavin earlier that we may have a little bit of a price shock coming into the industry. So how are we going to deal with that? And so making sure that we are learning as we go and move fast. But so far, it's been a really good launch. Great.
I'd like you to bring back into the reflections of what you just mentioned before, the collaboration themes. Because by launching, you launched, well done, on both the Android and the Apple platforms. That almost is a new positions for a telco, I would say. You really expanded into partnerships. So well, how is that model working? You really are working with multiple players, not necessarily suppliers. Is that an easy thing to do for video telco?
No, it's not easy at all. Not easy. And I would say quite openly, the hardest part of that is probably working with the OEM providers themselves because they are very structured and have, and so working within their process is probably the most challenging. I think the next challenging is figuring out amongst my peers how we're going to move together. I think your organization, the CTA, the CTIA, there are many players trying to help us move together, but it's not easy. I make this analogy that we are really competing, or at least compared to the hyperscalers that are national MNCs. We are 350 plus organizations, MNOs, across the world, having to figure out how to move together. That's a very different situation. So the collaboration is difficult, but necessary. And I think that we were very fortunate to be able to find the right people to work with internally at Google, at aggregators, at MEF, CTA, to be able to move forward together.
I'll bring you to Anne, because meanwhile, that resides on you and your team. You have to look at the trust. Or should I say the trust, the compliance to your own things as well. I hear you laughing already over terms. Tell us more about how you setting up things such as RCS and potentially more coming to you.
I'm laughing because when we did the prep call, I said compliance was a dirty word. It's not a dirty word. It's I think it is a PR problem. So, obviously my office is called the Data and Trust Office. We are technically the compliance office. So we're there, the enforcers, as it were. But we see data governance, we see compliance as something that should be enabling your data, enabling innovation. And so, obviously we're seeing that from the technology side. But we really do work with every single facet of the organization to ensure that we are considering privacy, security, data ethics, responsible AI. Like, how are we actually using data and technology to ensure that we are mitigating risk, but also finding value in it, because that's super important. What is the point of doing all of this if we're going to get locked down? So building trust is absolutely critical, both with our team externally. I mentioned that earlier. So just constantly communicating. But we need, I think you spoke to it earlier, Hemant, we need team members to get on board with this. And so we are working really, really hard to also ensure that there is a literacy component to all of the work that we do. So, our teams actually collaborate quite closely on sort of data and AI literacy, and that's something that, TELUS is really proud of. We've seen a 24% increase in data literacy since we kicked off the formal program in 2021. So, just across the board, really seeing that innovation.
Let me ask you about the secret recipe potentially, because the US TELUS seems to have worked a special process. You mentioned 600 data stewards, which is an impressive number. What do they do? How do they mean? Where are they in this company?
Yes, so something we are very proud of is our data enablement plan program. So that is actually sort of the master program, and then we've got 600 data stewards located in every part of our business. And these data stewards are team members who have volunteered to upskill, and it's actually really popular. We're not voluntelling them. We are, getting so much interest in doing this because we're upskilling them with the latest, data and AI literacy, so they see the value in learning those skills. But what's really special about it is that, as I say, every data technology use case is reviewed by experts, but it's driven by these in-business data leaders who are able to sort of usher projects through. So there's a lot of control in every business unit. It's not the data and trust experts or the security team experts or the data ethics experts sort of saying, no, you can't do this. Things are reviewed holistically. It's one front door. It's all tech enabled, and there's a lot of visibility through the process transparency. So yeah, we have 600 and growing of these data stewards. It's fabulous.
So embedded into the company. So we've seen an evolution of your products, of what TELUS is offering already. The philosophy about data and trust, the data policy, should I say, which is much more. And let's talk about with Hemant. I don't know if it's still the pipe, but you are the actual semi-physical implementations of where the data is, how you use it. You mentioned sovereignty before, which I understand is one of the big trends for all of the large telcos right now. What does it mean right now? What is sovereignty for data and AI? I should probably ask you first.
It's a very good question. Something that we get asked on a daily basis now. You can wake me up at 2 a.m. in the morning and ask me about this, and I'll answer you. So I think sovereignty seems like a sovereign data AI factory seems like a very sci-fi word. You imagine like computers in a bunker or something like that. It's not that. It's actually a framework of, I would say, 4 pillars. And foundation of that is in trust and control. The first one is that for sovereignty, when we mean Canadian sovereignty, we mean it's Canadian through and throughout. It's like your data is not just living in Canada, it has a Canadian passport, right? The second thing is your data doesn't leave the Canadian borders. It doesn't go to a foreign entity to be governed by their laws and regulations, right? So we can ensure that the data remains in Canada. The third aspect is that it's on our network. It's on our fiber, it's on our 5G network, so we can protect the data and ensure that it's not going where it's not supposed to go. And the fourth one would be the framework. And this is where I think Anne's team comes in really strong, is like, what is the foundation? Are we designing the solution in a responsible way? And I actually have a data steward right now who's working with someone on Anne's team to make sure that the sovereign AI factory is actually privacy compliant. And we have a privacy by design, security by design framework that allows us to do that. So I would say Canadian owned, operated in Canada, ensuring that the data doesn't leave Canada, run in our own enterprise networks, really guarantees the sovereignty aspect of it. And it's not just a need for certain industries like healthcare and finance, it's an absolute requirement for us to protect our data from foreign entities by getting access to it, I would say especially the healthcare data.
Can I just quickly add, it's also built in one of the world's most environmentally friendly data centers. So that's a pretty big deal, particularly for our customers. Oh, you hit the other part of sustainability. It's not just the market sustainability, but the environmental sustainability as well. So well done on that. We have, and I think all of these, I think to you should resonate.
Whether you're dealing with the product, you're dealing with the, I should not use a bad word, compliance, oops, I've done it. But you're dealing with also the trust that this industry needs. And how to use your data or your brand's data, or if you're a CPaaS and aggregator. That's also, you need to find a common language, I think, between some of the operators and the industry out there. We'll be here, so we'll continue to discuss. But do you have questions before I do keep them here for another couple? If you don't, I'll come back to what we were talking about. We got 3 different parts of the industry, and we heard even from Ryan how cooperation, collaboration is. How does this model of you working together kind of gets finalized at TELUS? How do you work together?
Maybe I'll start, because how we put the panel together was definitely purposeful. And so I would say that both the AI Factory as well as the Data and Trust Office have been very good at democratizing what they do. And it's important to me because we have to be in the product team and our go-to-market teams. We have to understand, first of all, that we design products that are trust first, and they have made it very accessible for us to do that. We also need to understand the power of automation and AI to be able to bring those through into the products. As an example, for most people will probably agree, messaging and RCS in particular provide a perfect domain for agentic AI. And so we're now building use cases to be able to do quick replies and to be able to do carousels, which are very oriented to brand marketing. But we were not far away from being able to do agentic AI within the actual channel itself. And so we wouldn't be able to see that in our product team if we didn't actually have the training and the support of these internal organizations. And TELUS tries to weave that together in a way that we make sure that we have the trust of the customer at hand and from the very beginning, and also make sure we know how to apply AI.
I was just going to add that I think I totally agree with all of that, and I think too, there's a lot of trust thrown around. The word trust is thrown around a lot, and I think what's so critical is, one, that human factor, that we aren't forgetting change management principles as we embark on this new world that is moving faster and faster, it's accelerating. And two, that trust that we're building, not only with our team, but with our customers, is critical to adoption. If we want our team to be experimenting safely and responsibly with AI, if we want them to embrace new technology, heck, whatever they are working on, within your business, they have to have some trust in you. They have to have trust in the process. They have to collaborate with their team. But I would argue too, we have to collaborate as an industry.
Hemant, how you do collaborate with the rest of it?
I think Ryan and Anne did a really good job of how things work internally. Also, I'm working on something with Anne's team, but Anne and I don't chat about it. Our teams are automatically working it because we have the frameworks and everything is available at the top of the hat for our employees. Some of it is definitely through the AI tooling that we have that just gives them access to a lot of this information that they would have to otherwise comb through various databases and drives and stuff like that. But the other thing also is I think governance is important. It's we have an AI governance board that basically decides what is to be implemented, taking in the outside considerations in as well, and that really helps us to helps us to understand that this whatever is given to us, we can trust that and we can work on it without having to worry about everything else that's going around us.
Okay. If I have to think of what you just told through it, it seems that you cannot just talk about collaborations or things that you need to set in place a framework, a governance, as you, Hemant, would say. And finally, you have to leave it day by day, so it needs to be built in, which is a nice reflection to when we talk about collaboration for us. It's not easy to be here today. I think we need to find a bit more than just being talking to each other. There is more that needs to be done. You mentioned agentic AI. We'll come back to that. Isn't that interesting for this industry? But not enough time actually look at that. Instead, we only have a few minutes. Very fast questions. How's that? But one that probably could summarize where you're going. If you have to choose for this transformation, which is the transformation of TELUS, a KPI, a single aspirational element which you would like to monitor and stay close to, what would that be? What would you say that is it's your goal of your transformations? Do you, tough questions, but I see you're already ready there, Ryan. So what is that?
Was I ready? I didn't think. Yeah, I can answer.
You made it.
I think so. I'm going to cheat because I'm going to give you two KPIs.
Oh, that's good.
The KPI, because I think telcos are very internally focused. So I'll give you the internal KPI first, which is reduce churn. I think the number one measurement of success for anything we do in this innovation is to make sure customers are happy and not churning. But externally, I would also really like them to be loyal and say that TELUS has my back. So brand loyalty, and you can measure that by MPV or some other way.
Okay, so that's a brand. So, and from your side, how would you measure success in such a difficult topic as could be trust? What's trust success?
I did my master's thesis on this earlier this year,
there
so
we
I'm not
go.
going to go into that because that
A
was
PhD ready for
No,
it?
master's. But it's very complicated. I think, from a communications perspective, we often look at share of voice, so we want to understand in the context. The world is on fire. Media coverage is, there's a lot happening for us to get coverage per se. But when you look at the pie, we might look at that. But we also, I'll cheat, I'll use two. We do track brand trust. And so I'm always looking at that in context of what we're doing and trying to, I think just really quickly, I know we're supposed to be quick, but we do that research, but we also are running focus groups, and we actually released a responsible AI report. So quick plug on telus.com/responsible AI, where we, ran studies and we talked to people and we asked them what they were worried about. And, I think what I take away from that is quite a lot in terms of human-centric AI. So, we know that AI doubles in trust when a human is involved. So I think those kinds of learnings are really critical, not a KPI.
Well, thank you.
I'll be very quick. I think we are investing billions of dollars into technology, and I think financial outcomes are prime. We have to drive financial outcomes to that. Our AI initiatives have driven over $250 million in efficiency and savings.
Sorry, I didn't catch.
Our AI initiatives have driven over $250 million. $250 million.
250 million
Yes.
in efficiency today.
In AI, ML, and generative AI workloads over the last 5 years.
And just to tie that up, because I want to, first of all, echo the fact that when I go to these teams, commercialization is not a dirty word. And I think that's important, we especially when I deal with an ecosystem. Everybody here represents a business or a brand who's trying to create value. And you need partners that help you create value.
Doing good is good for business, I think. We say that a lot. Darren, our CEO, says that a lot.
Well, let's all be good in that case, and let's do a lot of good business. There's no time. Were there questions? I don't know. No, there was one. Well, we have one. We don't have time, but we'll come to it. I mean, let's. That's the only thing I can do as a CEO. It's the only power that I might have around here. So let me use it.
Hi, I'm Shantanu. I am from Ryan's team at TELUS. My question was to Hemant. We just saw that, you were talking about data having its passport, like Canadian passport, but that only works until your tools are built in Canada as well. US just yesterday announced $200 million of funding for 4 firms just to build agentic AI. How do you see TELUS AI Factory sort of expanding to build tools rather than just being a store for you to come in and make your own models? Because if you don't have the tools, then the AI is just going to flow to Anthropic or OpenAI or something like that outside the country. So that's my question.
Absolutely. No, I think a fantastic question. And one of the reasons why we are doing this is actually to have Canadian intellectual property, right? When you are building your solutions on foreign infrastructure, you don't have the Canadian IP for that. What TELUS is good at is infrastructure. So we want to manage the infrastructure for you. We want to manage service providers, service to you. So the Canadian researchers, data scientists can actually build solutions on top that are Canadian owned and operated and built, right? Also, the government of Canada is investing heavily as well. They've earmarked almost $2 billion for the Pan-Canada AI strategy to actually give us this money for the Canadian enterprises to build the infrastructure, to also Canadian startups and enterprises to actually use the infrastructure and to build the tools on top of that. And what TELUS is doing right now is enabling that foundation to at least have the infrastructure for you to build, and the next step is actually be building, and we will be building it along with our partners across Canada.
Good. I like the way we go back to some of the topics we started in keynotes and so on. So I think we're going to have interesting conversations on our breaks as well. For now, however, a big thank you to our host as well. So to TELUS and to Ryan, to Anne, and to Hemant. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.